Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Dash Jhart, aka DJ Gearhart, and this episode we are talking about the 2020 film Mank, a new David Fincher movie starring Gary Oldman.
That's right. We are talking about Mank, and, you know, when does Gary Oldman ever do us wrong? Can I just say that? Can I just say that straight up? When does Gary Oldman ever do a bad performance? Honestly, DJ, can you think of one? Can you think of a bad performance from Gary Oldman? Put some thought into it.
Do you want me? I mean, this will take the entire episode because I can't. I mean, I don't want to say that there's not, because everybody's human, you know, everybody, and he had to have started out at some point, you know, being a fresh actor, you know, or maybe
and he's got such an extensive
mishap.
filmography too. It would take probably at least 60 minutes to try and just remember every single movie that Gary Oldman's in. I can't really think of one. I can't think of a bad performance. I mean, he's got Darkest Hour, not bad.
Yeah.
He's got Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, not bad. He's got Dracula, not bad. He's Gordon in The Dark Knight, not bad.
He's Sirius Black in Harry Potter.
Absolutely not bad.
He was Jesus in a TV miniseries in 1999. Oh, sorry. He was Pontius Pilate in a TV series called Jesus in 1999. I assume not bad. He was Richard Crosby in a couple episodes of Friends in 2001. He was he played himself, Gary Oldman, and Greg the Bunny, the TV series in 2002. I'm just going off his IMDb right now. Stuff I haven't seen of him.
He was also in Leon the Professional. He was the villain in Leon the Professional. Actually, yeah. Stansfield was the character he played in Leon the Professional. 1994, that was. That's a great movie. Yeah. Again,
I had a
not
friend in
bad.
college who, not bad. I had a friend in college who he decided to major in Russian because of Gary Oldman's performance in Air Force One as the Russian guy. And he's like, that sounds badass. I like the way that Gary Oldman Russian accent is. I'm going to major in Russian in college. So
that's impressive.
I remember him telling us, he was almost kind of embarrassed about it. I was like, whoa, really? But I was like, oh, well, that's cool. That proves how powerful movies are. So I think that's a cool fact. But yeah, he is an incredible actor. He will be, I'm talking like he's dead. Thank God he's not dead. But he will be remembered like hundreds of years now as one of the great actors of this era. And yeah, he did not let us down in Mank either. But before we get into Mank, again, I ask you, buddy, like I do every week, what have you been science slurping this week? And if you're new to us, what I mean by that is, what has Adam been watching, playing, reading, maybe making this past week besides watching Mank?
Yes, what I've been manking this past week. Honestly, it's been the lazy week of 2021. That's been the summary of 2020, like most people in the quarantine circle. I shouldn't say that. I can't generalize for everybody in the quarantine land. But to be honest, this past week, it's been video games for the most part. I jumped into Final Fantasy 14 recently, the MMO. I've been having an MMO urge recently to just socialize with some people and video game with others. So DJ, maybe you and I can get on Twitch TV and MMO with some other people and socialize with some other nerds like ourselves.
That'd be great. I need a PS4 though. I need a PS5, PS4 to do that though. Isn't it only on a PlayStation?
No, actually, you can play Final Fantasy 14 on the Mac, on Windows, and on PS4, and it is cross-platform.
Oh, well, hell yeah, then. I'll get it on my MacBook.
So jump all around. I've also been writing some music after our last episode of Pixar's new film, Soul. It really inspired me to jump back onto the keyboard. I mean, I play keyboard all the time. It's really just a way to let out the emotions, and so I started doing a cover of Stevie Wonder's song visions. It's a great one to just really get all the soul feelings out. So I highly encourage listening to Stevie Wonder if you don't already listen to enough Stevie Wonder. But love playing music. Play some music sometime. And I also started reading more of Spider-Ham after watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I found some issues of Spider-Ham from the 1980s, and the last issue I left off on involves Doctor Doom. So lots of puns in Spider-Ham, even more
So
than...
Spider-Man's real, right? These are actual comics from the 1980s. They're not just
They
comics
are.
that are made to look like they're from 1980s.
They are. They are actual comics from the 1980s with lots and lots of animal puns. So if Spider-Man himself wasn't punny enough for you, there's Spider-Ham, there's Captain Americat, there's Doctor Doom, there's
How have I not heard about
Goose
this?
Rider instead of
I've
Ghost
been
Rider.
reading comics since I was like a little kid, and I never heard of Spider-Ham before. I especially read Spider-Man too growing up. Like, how did I've never heard of Spider-Ham until, well, like Spider-Pig in the Simpsons movie, and then Spider-Ham in the recent Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah, I don't know how Spider-Ham flew under the bus for all of us until Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, but now that I found these comics and now that I'm reading them, I think it's absolutely hysterical, all of the puns that they use in Spider-Ham, all of the animal puns, especially now that I'm on the issue about Doctor Doom, which is literally just Doctor Doom is a duck. So it's just going to keep going on. I can't handle how ridiculous it is. But what about you, man? What have you been up to?
Well, of course, I've been continuing playing Fire Emblem Three Houses. I am now what is officially called the Church Path. This is the fourth path in Fire Emblem Three Houses, even though it's called Three Houses. There's four paths. 5, you get the DLC. And as I mentioned before, this is the path where you start off with the Black Eagles storyline. And spoilers, everybody, spoiler alert, spoilers if you want to play this game. It's you start off playing with the Black Eagles, and then Edelgard, who is the house leader, she basically says, "I'm gonna take over the world. Will you join me?" And in this one, it splits into the quote unquote church path because you're a professor at the Officers Academy of the Church of Saros at Garrick Mach Monastery. You tell her to fuck off, and I'm not gonna take over the world, and I'm going to be a good guy. And you decide to then protect everybody in the land of Fodlan. It's divided into 3 countries, and so far it's pretty good. It's not my favorite path line so far. My favorite path is definitely with the Blue Lions with Dimitri. Second one would be Claude with the Golden Deer. And it's really interesting because Claude has this like really cool goal of like mixing and diversifying the country and bringing understanding and less prejudice to people. And he's a man who is he's a mixed man. He's one of his parents from Fodlan, and one of his parents is from a foreign country called Elmira, which is all, you know, fantasy fictional places, of course. And then Dimitri is someone who is trying to protect the quote unquote weak and make sure that the underdog is protected, but not until after he goes through a traumatic dip in his character and has to redeem himself. So really good writing. Really love that game. Of course, I've been talking about it since the beginning of this podcast. It is definitely worth the $60 to $80. If you get the DLC, it gets, guess it's around $80. Anyway, moving on. I have a confession to make. And I'm totally willing to make this publicly. Until this past week, and I knew it was important for this movie especially, I had not seen Citizen Kane until this past week.
What?
I know, man. You've talked about it before, and I'm like, I'm going to avoid.
My mind is blown.
It. I have a film degree, and I'm embarrassed, and I haven't watched it. I just hadn't gotten to it. We mentioned it a few times in school. You know, no adults showed it to me growing up, and I'm like, I need to watch this if I'm gonna know what's going on with Mank. So I watched Citizen Kane for the very first time. It was interesting. Not my cup of tea, but I recognized the genius that was in it, for sure. It's kind of funny how The part that's not my cup of tea is actually with the script. And I don't hate it at all, but I'm like, the beginning of it was so like jarring, especially with what we're going through right now in our country in 2021 and have for the past few years. And I thought it was going to be getting like really into like this like political discourse with like a person who has a lot of money and influence, and also crossed with like celebrity isms and scandals and stuff like that. I thought it was going to get really deeper into it, but I didn't expect that it was going to be so much more personal with CF Kane, and it seemed more about his personal relationships to me anyway, from my point of view, which is fine. It just, I was surprised and I was a little confused, but again, this movie was, fantastic for the time. I mean, it was 1941, and this just seemed like this, like, wow, this like, smack in the face epic, and, I'm glad that I finally saw it, for sure. I'm glad that I finally saw it, and I definitely do not disregard its place in cinema history. It's just not my favorite. An old movie that came out the same year. I would rather watch The Maltese Falcon. I'm more of a noir guy, which came out, I believe, in also 1941. I could be wrong about that. Listeners, if I'm wrong, please correct me on social media. Don't mind being called out. I am always willing to correct myself. Anyway, at least I try to be. Moving on. I also watched, Anka and I watched Waking Ned Divine, which is a very lovely, charming Irish movie that came out, I think 1998 or 1999. Have you ever seen Waking Ned Divine?
I have not, actually. I've never heard of it.
It's so good, man. It is so quirky and cute and lovely, and it's so good. I loved it, and it's so Irish and so I don't know, it just makes you feel good, especially the end. Go watch Waking Ned Divine if you haven't. It's so good. Other than that, I also got back to reading, because I put it down for a while because I was reading Dune for a little bit, but I have this problem. I don't know if it's a problem, I guess. I don't know. I go, whenever, like, reading, I always, like, read like 5 books at once. I was like, read a little bit from one book and I set it down. I read another from another book anyway. So I put down The Way of Kings, book 1 of the Stormlight Archive, down for like, I think since like last summer, I haven't touched it at all. And I picked it up again and I got back into it. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, why did I put this down? I think it's because I thought I had to read Dune really quickly, because I thought it was going to come out, and I was like, fuck. But then now I still have to finish Dune, because I haven't finished reading that. So now, anyway, I'll get back to Dune. I got time before the movie comes out next year. So anyway, yeah, The Way of Kings, book 1 of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's really cool, fantasy epic, and I'm guessing it'll probably be adapted to a movie too. And last thing on my list is I started doing a at home by Zoom a sword fighting class based in European medieval sword play. It was it's based off the knightly arts, and
as long as no one gets hurt.
Yes, you focus on long swords and bastard swords, and it's so far really cool. I'm really enjoying it. I know I probably won't use it ever in my life, unless I'm playing something in a fantasy movie where I have to play a swordsman. But other than that, it's really cool. It's
I was
fun.
really curious how you sword fight through Zoom.
I already have like a bunch of like decorative swords and toy swords and stuff. So I just picked one up and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do it properly this time. But that's about it. That's what I've been slurping this past week. And other than that, I also watched our movie for this coming week, or for this week, which is Mank. I keep reading it as Monk, but it's Mank.
Well, that's a TV show, and we're not talking about that this week.
No, we're not. We are talking about Mank, which is a 2020 American biographical drama film about screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz and his development of the screenplay for Citizen Kane. which was released in 1941, like we mentioned. This movie, Mank, was directed by David Fincher, and it was based on a screenplay by his late father, Jack Fincher. The film was produced by Cian Chaffin, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Douglas Urbanski, and Eric Roth. It stars Gary Oldman in the title role, Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, Arliss Howard, Tom Pelphrey, Sam Troughton, Ferdinand Kingsley, Tuppence Middleton, Tom Burke, Joseph Cross, Jamie Shane, Toby Leonard Moore, Monica Gossman, and Charles Dance. David Fincher's father, Jack Fincher, wrote the script in the 1990s, and David originally intended to film it after he completed The Game, which was in 1997, with Kevin Spacey and Jodie Foster as the leads. It never came to fruition, and Jack Fincher died in 2003. Eventually, the project was officially announced in July 2019, and filming took place around Los Angeles from November 2019 to February 2020. So finished very recently last year. Mank had a limited theatrical release, of course, on November 13th, 2020, and began streaming on Netflix on December 4th. The film received positive reviews from critics who praised the direction, cinematography, production design, soundtrack, and performances of Oldman and Seyfried. And also, again, I'm just going to read it up because I'm not sure if this is fair to read off nowadays, but in case the listeners are curious, it had a budget of 20 to 30 million, and the box office it made 99,752. Again, that should not be a way to rate how good or bad this film is, because it's post 2020 and we're still trying to get through the pandemic. So that box office number should not be judged on this. Like I said last week, I think now that a lot of things are streaming, I think that there should be a new rating system where we judge a film at least by how well it does through how many plays, how many clicks, how many like on YouTube, how many plays does this have, like a YouTube video. I think that would be a better way to rate a film, because looking at this film and how like just the extreme high quality that went into and work that went into this film, seeing a number like 99,752 from a budget of 20 to 30 million, it's just like, what the fuck happened? But it's like, you have to know that 2020 is like such a kick in the groin for the movie industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awful. And it feels so bad. And that's why I like totally applaud people like Tom Cruise, who are just like getting up people's butts about making sure they are sticking to COVID safety regulations. So that way big productions like this don't get shut down and people still have jobs making these movies, because people are already losing jobs when it comes to like the cinemas, and it's just heartbreaking. I really hope that it all like perseveres and makes it through, and hope everybody will be okay who's been, in the industry for a really long time, or just getting into it. Who knows? Anyway, I hope everything will be okay. I hope everybody will be okay, and I hope movies make it through, and maybe they'll even be stronger after this.
I agree 100%. Yes.
Adam, you've been a Citizen Kane fan for a long time, as you mentioned before, right? Correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
You love that movie. You love it. Anyway, so you probably have more feelings about this than I do. I don't have negative feelings, but you probably have more feelings, more connection to Mank than I do. So please go in depth on like how you felt about this movie and any information that you'd like to reiterate while discussing what you thought about this.
Yeah, well, first of all, don't tell me you have negative feelings about Citizen Kane. Okay?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Don't you tell me you have negative feelings about that. I read a book.
I'm not bashing it.
I'm going to start off like the narcissist I am. I read a book.
You are not a narcissist.
I read a book on Citizen Kane called Citizen Kane, A Filmmaker's Journey. I need to sound like some old-timey citizen now. No, but I will say...
Citizen Kane, an old-timey journey.
I recommend. It's actually a very good book. It's called Citizen Kane, A Filmmaker's Journey by Harlan Lebo. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, sir.
Harley Quinn.
Harlan Lebo.
Gee, Mr. J, I just want to write this book about Mr. Orson Welles and his movie Citizen Kane.
Get out of here. Okay, for real though. Citizen Kane, A Filmmaker's Journey by Harlan Lebo.
Nebo. I don't know. I just
Regardless, fantastic book. The author, Harlan, he goes into great detail about everything you need to know about Citizen Kane. And I mean everything, front to back, everything you need to know about Orson Welles, the production of Citizen Kane, in and out. I didn't read that quite recently, as in, the last week or so, but I did go through the entire book, and it does cover literally everything about the film. And I mean, the cinematographer, his involvement, it goes through, Orson's production with the screenplay, with making the film, everything. So from my history of reading that book, that was a great detail of knowledge about Citizen Kane in that time. And it has been some time since I have read that book. So, since time has passed since I've read that book, I went into watching this movie thinking, I've got some history of knowledge of Citizen Kane, and I'd like to think that I've retained that information watching this movie. I hope I have. And I turned on Mank thinking, that information was still in my brain, and I hoped it was. And as I started to watch this movie, it really... I'm not going to say that I kept all of that information intact, but I will say that, wow, this movie really surprised me with the detail that they really put into this. It was almost like rereading the book a little bit, because I think they really put a lot of detail into making this film as close as they could to making a film as if it was coming straight from the 1940s, as if they were recreating Citizen Kane. They
had monkeys in it, right? They had monkeys when...
In Citizen Kane?
No. Well, yeah, in the beginning.
Well, in Citizen Kane, yes, they did. Yeah.
And they also had monkeys when the first walk that Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried took, and there's monkeys.
That was another point I was going to make.
It was in Citizen Kane too.
Yes. That was another point I wanted to make that I thought was very interesting. So not only when I first started watching Mank did I think, wow, this movie looks exactly like they're trying to recreate Citizen Kane. Not like it's, Citizen Kane recreated verbatim just from... the beginning of Mank. I mean, it looks like it's a film coming straight from the 1940s. Looks great, black and white. The credit sequence looks like it's straight from the 1940s. Music sounds like it's straight from the 1940s. I'm very impressed, very surprised. But if we want to jump to that scene where Gary Oldman's walking with Amanda Seyfried, they're walking around. Now that looked like Citizen Kane. Like you were saying, DJ, that looked like they're walking through Xanadu. Like they're in Citizen Kane. You see the monkeys. Yep. You see the giraffes. And you've got that shot. It looks just like the opening of Citizen Kane, because you can see the giant, I'll say castle. You can kind of see the giant palace.
It's like Castlevania.
Yeah, you got that palace in the backdrop, just like the opening shot of Citizen Kane, where they have that palace in the backdrop that gets bigger and bigger with each shot. They didn't quite do that in Mank, where you got the increase in size, that shot that keeps going there. But they did.
See, that was like an inspiration possibly for Mank.
Exactly.
When writing Citizen Kane.
Exactly. So they've got that same sort of shot setup, though. The kind of detail that they make that location look just like Xanadu. I was really impressed, and I just liked that the way that Mank was set up. All of the shots looked like they were coming straight out of a movie, like it was from the 1940s. They obviously wanted the whole movie to look like it was a 1940s film. That was fantastic. This is supposed to be coming from the mind of a 1930s, 1940s screenwriter, so it's going to look that way. And I really liked that they had that font face that would come up that looks like screenwriting text for transitions when it would do flashbacks, and when
that
they
really
scene
helped
entrances.
me realize like where in time are we. I love that screenplay heading, and every time we would just be like, in parentheses flashback, and like, okay, cool, like totally helps me. Something that I think that, like, even though I love the series, The Witcher should have, because they also time jump, and I'm like, everybody looks the same age, I need to know. So love The Witcher, other than that part it's confusing. So I did really appreciate that. And yeah, it made sense because he's a writer. He writes screenplays. And yeah, I totally loved it. I loved how everything looked, even though it's funny. When I was little, I used to think that, like, when I would watch old movies, like, did everybody just see black and white before Wizard of Oz? Did everybody in the 1930s and 40s and stuff just... the world was just black and white, and but obviously not. But it's the way funny. I looked at this is that it was almost like seen from him as a movie writer, as a movie maker. As a filmmaker, he And that's the way movies looked.
Yeah.
And we were seeing it almost the way he saw the world.
It's funny you say that because Herman Mankiewicz worked on The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, because I remember what was it? His brother brought it up in one of the scenes, and he's like, "That fucking movie." And again, yeah, there's a little like toss to it, which was funny. But I did not know that he worked on it. That's
he's apparently not credited for it in real life. They didn't credit him for it. He was one of 10 screenwriters that worked on it, and he's not credited on it.
Did he write the part where one of the I don't think this is the correct term. One of the little people hang themselves. Did he write that part?
I don't think so. I think the detail online explains that he was the one who came up with the idea about the information that like people need to be more aware of. What is it? Dorothy in Kansas. It needs to be more explained that like more the importance of Dorothy in Kansas to connect with the audience before she goes to the fairy tale world. Like that needs to be just as important or like equally as important as her going into the fairy tale land, and it needs to be in black and white.
That makes sense. I like that part. He should have been credited for it.
I mean, it's a shame when certain screenwriters do so much work and then the movie comes out and they get no credit. I mean, it's a shame with a lot of things, pretty much with anything, when someone puts in the work and then they don't get credit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Which equally so, as I say that in Mank, when Orson Welles is saying, I'll give you $10,000 and if you don't get credit for this, you know? Mm-hmm. So, people.
This movie, I, like we were talking about before, I loved the look of this so much. I love it when a movie is black and white on purpose and it's filmed that way and it's lit that way. I love the high contrast between black and white. I like it when there's barely any gray in between, and it's you just see hard blacks and hard whites, and I love seeing that played with in this, and it brings you back to a very classic time in Hollywood. None that any of us were, at least me and Adam were alive back then, but it feels like going back in history, and the thing is though, well, you know what? Before I really get into my thoughts, to catch people up, the audience, the listeners here, if you haven't seen Mank and you're listening to us and don't care about spoilers, I'm just going to fill you in a little bit about the plot before I get into my personal feelings and thoughts. So here we go. In 1940, Orson Welles is given complete creative freedom for his next project by RKO. For the screenplay, Welles recruits Herman J. Mankiewicz, aka Mank, who is in Victorville, California, recovering from a broken leg he sustained in a car accident. Herman dictates the script to his secretary, Rita Alexander, who notices similarities between the main character and William Randolph Hearst. Producer John Houseman is concerned about Herman's dense, nonlinear screenplay, while Herman's brother Joseph worries that it may anger the powerful Hearst. In 1930, Herman visits an MGM location where he and the female lead, Marion Davies, which I did notice seemed very similar to the actress Dorothy Cummingore, who played the second wife, right, of Kane in Citizen Kane. Huge similarity between her. At least that's what they had her, I don't know, portraying as Amanda Seyfried's character in Mank. I just noticed, I'm like, oh yeah, she's the inspiration for Susan Alexander Kane.
Oh yeah.
For his second wife, I should say, right? Yeah, not Mary Kane, Susan Alexander Kane, the singer, the quote unquote singer, the asshole quotes they gave her, which I'm like, that's not nice. She doesn't deserve that. Anyway, she's a singer. You made her an opera house. Anyway, so when where he and the female lead, Marion Davies, recognize each other, she introduces him to her benefactor and lover, who takes a liking to Herman. In 1933, Herman and his wife Sarah attend Louis B. Mayer's birthday party at Hearst Castle with many Hollywood bigwigs. They discuss the rise of Nazi Germany and the upcoming gubernatorial election, in particular candidate Upton Sinclair. Herman and Marion go for a stroll where they bond over discussions on politics and the film industry. Those two scenes are probably my favorite two scenes of this movie. I found them very engaging. I find them, I really liked what was Mank said about socialism and communism, how he's like, you have to understand, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, you have to understand the difference between socialism and communism. Socialism is where everybody shares the wealth. Communism is where everybody shares the poverty. And I was like, oh man, like this is such a engaging conversation, especially with like so many people nowadays that are just like, you know, like, oh, socialism is communist. It's like, no, it's not communism. It just means like helping out those who just need help and not making people brainwashed, thinking that like a 70-hour work week is normal, and being like, I don't know, and making them feel like they're like, yeah, I should did, like, that's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome, but also like you should be getting a lot more money. You should have a better quality of life if you're working that hard. Yeah. And anyway, I blame the system. But yeah, socialism would be like a way of like, hey, here's some money. That way you don't have to work a 70-hour work week. And it's not a handout because everybody's here contributing, paying taxes, and then we spread out the wealth, and the people who don't have it as well, who haven't had as well, like get evened out. It's equity, you know, like it's not just equality, it's equity. Equity is important. Anyway, I found those two scenes like very engaging, where they were talking about politics and movies. And then it was so cool, like when Amanda Seyfried's character and Mank go out and for a stroll and talk more about movies and stuff like that. And then we start, as we mentioned earlier, we start seeing these like aspects of Citizen Kane, where it almost seemed like they were walking in Xanadu. You know, we see some, you know, Gothic architecture in the background. We see some monkeys, and she seems so much like the character Susan Alexander Kane. Those two scenes are probably my favorite. Anyway, moving on. In 1940, Houseman grows impatient over Herman's lack of progress. Rita is also concerned with the timing of his writing, as well as Herman's alcoholism. Herman eventually finishes the screenplay in time. Houseman is impressed, but reminds Herman that he will receive no credit for his work. Whew, man, what a kick! Bastards. In the butt. That is awful, as it was. Watching the movie, it's just the thought of that is just like gut wrenching.
The thing that interested me though was that Mank, he may have been an alcoholic, and that's awful that he was, you know, suffering from alcoholism. However, he was a great guy. You know, he had great intent to helping others, and as Rita was talking to Mank's, I will say, maid, his helper, as he was in his bed, and he would tell her, you know, like, I need you to bring me, you know, a drink, you know, every night before, like as a nightcap, or so to speak. And Rita had said that she was going to give him her resignation the next day or something. As she went and talked to the maid had explained that it was because of Mank that her and her entire village got out of Nazi Germany.
Like 100 people.
Yeah. Because of a film that he produced. So that, of course, she was going to make him a nightcap, because it was because of him and his screenplay that freed her entire village or something. So that was a moment where Rita realized, like, oh shit, like, of course I'm going to help Mank. And if he needs a nightcap, then like I'll work with him through. Yeah, like let him have a nightcap.
It's not hurting anybody. Let him have a drink. He's not driving.
So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, he's an alcoholic. Okay, he's going to have a nightcap. On one hand, yeah, like maybe he drinks a lot. But on the other hand, like the guy wants to help people. The guy's got like a good mentality. And it's a very interesting way to look at this character and look at this film. And I guess the humanism of it all. It's like, on one hand, someone might smoke a pack a day or 2 packs a day. On the other hand, like, they want to help somebody out. Or there's another scene where there's a guy on the street. He's asking for $1, and Mank's looking for a way. He's like, "Hey, can I get $1 to help this guy out?" And then the guy's like, "Actually, my friend too. He needs $1." And Mank's looking to get him another $1, but he just can't get him the other $1. Like, he clearly wants to help people out. He's trying to get this socialism society going. And then on the other hand, he's an alcoholic. It's just like, you know, the yin and the yang of the situation.
Yeah, to me, I don't know. As long as he's not hurting people, and as long as he's not, you know, reckless and starting fights and getting behind the wheel of a car while drunk, or it's like, well, he's obviously doing it responsibly, and
right.
even though it's excessive, he's doing it responsibly. And I'm like, well, then I'm like, it's unrelated then to
the only
the good
thing in
deeds
this
of its
movie
heart.
that I can think of where you were seeing that was his gambling. He was an alcoholic and he was a gambler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when he made what was it, that double at the election, right? The election night at the nightclub.
$24,000. That
it's like, dude, can you check in with your wife first before you make that bet? Like, you just had a $12,000 gambling debt cleared, and now you're gonna bet double of that.
And this is 1940, 1941.
Yeah, that's like $1 bajillion nowadays. Yeah, back then. It's like, ask your wife before you bet $1 bajillion on an election. So, yeah. Anyway, nobody's perfect.
Ask Lily Collins before you do that.
Yeah.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Oh, that reminds me of Cobra Kai. That song, I'm not going to say where, but that was in season 3 of Cobra Kai, or at least a cover of it was. Anyway, moving on, back to a flashback, as I stated, and the heading of the screenplay style heading for the scene started. In 1934, Herman and Joseph began working at MGM under Mayer. Studio executives, including Irving Thalberg, actively work against Sinclair's gubernatorial campaign. Let's just read this like we were talking about earlier. Back in the studio produces propaganda films for the smear campaign funded by Hearst against Sinclair. Herman approaches Marion to get the films pulled, but it is unsuccessful, as she already left the studio for Warner Brothers. Herman and Sarah later attend on election night, which party at the Tocadero nightclub, where we were just talking about, where Mayer announces the winner, Frank Merriman. Herman's colleague, director Shelley Metcalf, shoots and kills himself after being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and guilt-ridden over his role in a smear campaign in spite of personally supporting Sinclair. So that was, when he killed himself after being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. It's just like, wow. After that election, and you could see that, like, even though he like, oh shit, I just lost, as Mank, I just lost a $24,000 debt. The guy who I wanted to win in the election lost. My wife is throwing up and probably hating my guts now. I'm with my friend and Shelly, and he has Parkinson's disease, and he tries to take he's like, he takes the bullets that he unloads his revolver.
So thank God I stopped him from killing himself. And his wife tells me that he has a whole pack of bullets.
He has a whole pack of bullets, and he failed to do that. Like, the thought of that, and how he's like, okay, I'm not going to worry about my troubles right now. This guy's like considering suicide, and it's just like, wow, how devastating.
Also, can you imagine the realism of the situation if you were in his shoes? And I don't know. I have a tendency to overthink a lot of situations. So if I was in his shoes and I'm taking the bullets, so I'm like, okay, I got the bullets, so at least that's taken care of. And I get to the house, and this is his second wife. So you're like, okay, Faye, I got the bullets, and it's like, I'm Eve, and it's like, okay, Eve, I got the bullets. It's like, he's actually got a whole pack of bullets, and you're like, Faye, Eve, what?
Number 1 and number 2, yeah.
God. That would be so stressful, and the amount of things that must be going through that man's mind. It's just, I can't. This is history. This is American history. This is film history. This actually happened in real life. I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it now. It's just amazing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's devastating. Anyway, back to 1920-30s voice for more plot. In 1940, Charles Leader picks up the screenplay from Herman to deliver it to the studio. Joseph visits Herman after reading the screenplay and warns him of Hearst's reaction and it might affect Marion. He does, however, believe that it's finest thing Herman has ever written. Marion also visits and does her best to persuade Herman to change the screenplay, but to no avail. She tells Herman that she will try try to stop the picture from getting made. In 1937, Herman crashes a party at Hearst Castle, where he drunkenly pitches the idea for the film and will go on to write in 1940. Offending everyone present, including Hearst, Mayor, and Marion. Mayor reveals that Herman is on Hearst payroll and compares him to a court jester. Hearst tells him an allegory about a monkey and an organ grinder and sees him out. Almost done.
Okay, I think Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are gonna fire me pretty soon.
I got like one last paragraph here, and then we can talk about how we felt about the ending. So in 1940, despite pressure from Hearst, Wells is determined to make the film and intends to do a rewrite about Herman. He visits Herman and offers him a buyout from the studio. However, reneging, I don't like saying that word, on the terms of his contract. It just sounds like a bad word. Herman demands credit for the script, declaring that it's his greatest work. Wells is upset, and Orson Welles is upset and tells Herman that he has gone to bat for him before leaving angrily. Herman ultimately receives joint credit with Wells, and the two win the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for the film 2 years later. And then what was it? Like, he has like a recording or like a film, like he filmed himself like what he would have said, right? At the as exception.
Oh, Mankiewicz
speech. Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ending of this, which I know it's based on true story, it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt. So, in case you don't know, listeners, this film is not like, I don't know. It's a great. It was fantastically made. It's an important story in film history, and it's not like a feel good film. It's not like that's a happy ending. Good guys won the end, and everything's gonna be all right. Like it's sad. It's like a story that needs to be told about a writer that just kept getting kicked in the butt by the world,
by everyone.
And but wanted to do well. He had a vice. He had something that was, it was just hurting himself, as he was told he's a court jester. Which is unfair.
Well, Louis Mayer sounded like a piece of shit, so I obviously don't know him personally. I don't know anything about him, but the film depicts him as a piece of shit. So, not a nonstop piece of shit, but there were plenty of scenes where he just seemed like a total rich goonie, and he did not seem like he treated people nicely that he employed. So he just seemed like he cared about himself and his money. And there was the introductory scene about him, where he pretty much explained, as paraphrasing, like, welcome to MGM, it's all about me, essentially.
Yeah. As we mentioned before, it was David Fincher's dad who wrote this. The 120-page draft of the initial script revealed that Jack Fincher closely followed a claim voiced by Pauline Kael in her 1971 New Yorker article, Raising Kane, that Wells did not deserve screenwriting credit. The article angered many critics, including Wells's friend and fellow filmmaker, Peter Bogdanovich, who rebutted Kael's claims point by point in the Kane Mutiny on October 1972 article for Esquire. Her argument was discredited by several film scholars through the years, including Robert L. Kieringer in his study of the scripts of Citizen Kane. Mank producer Eric Roth reportedly polished the script prior to filming, with David Fincher saying that he felt early drafts were too anti-Wells. I'm glad they didn't it seemed like a good balance in its relationship to Wells. I actually thought Orson Welles was going to be in it a lot more, especially the way they set it up in the beginning with the opening text.
I agree too.
I thought it was going to be like Mank and Mank and Wells. Like, I thought it was just going to be about these two guys with more of a from a point of view from Mank. I really thought that this was, it ended up being mostly about Mank.
Yeah, I agree. It was really...
Was in like what, 2 scenes? Yeah. In this movie.
It started off, the opening statement was about Orson Welles, and you would think, okay, so this is about the movie that Orson Welles was a big part of. It's about Citizen Kane, where much more so this movie, I mean, the movie is entitled Mank, but even more so, this movie is very much just about Mank and his personal life. And although
barely about Citizen Kane, really.
Yeah,
it's more about Mank.
Hardly
his
even
life
touches on Citizen Kane.
And politics and Hollywood, then.
It never even mentions that the film is titled Citizen Kane.
No, it's not.
It's just, it touches on him writing the movie. It never mentions him calling the film Citizen Kane. It just talks about him writing a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. That was surprising. Not a bad surprise, but it was surprising. So yeah, David Fincher, he was the director of this movie of Mank. And filming, like I said, it began November 1st, 2019 in Los Angeles. It also took place in Victorville, California, and wrapped on February 4th, 2020. The film was shot in black and white on Fincher's preferred red digital camera, love red, and referenced the aesthetics of Citizen Kane cinematographer Greg Toland. Dance stated that a scene involving a drunken Mankiewicz took over 100 takes, while Seaford said that one of her scenes took over a week and 200 takes to shoot. Ugh. She stated, "It does feel like Groundhog Day in a way," the movie Groundhog Day starring Bill Murray, in a way, but that's how Fincher captures things, and most people don't. I've heard that a lot about Fincher, that and also another reason why he likes to shoot digital rather than film more is because when it comes to like performances, he's like, okay, let's get another take. Like, I think that's cool because it allows breathing room for the actors. You have more of a chance to, as actors, you have more of a chance to get a performance really well. It gives the director, it gives Fincher options on performances of what to take, what to use. And it's sometimes like, especially like the way film is, like usually the actors don't get a whole lot of time to rehearse. I mean, it's not like a play right. where they rehearse 2 months before it opens. They get like maybe 1 or 2 times if they're lucky. And it's like, you gotta have, I don't know, I totally, a lot of people get irritated by his way of filming, but like, I think it's like, in my opinion, it's like the only way to get good shit out of your actors is to give time for that. And also it's inexpensive compared to shooting on film, on celluloid. And then it allows like a really good dynamic, I guess, between the director and the actors, and the pressure to like get it right. Like money is rolling through the shutter. Like it's the pressure of that is way less compared to what it would be on celluloid. Nothing in celluloid. Celluloid's great, but it's also very expensive. And what matters more to me is the content rather than the format. And the way technology is nowadays, especially shooting on red cameras, like, I don't know. Like, yeah, some people say like, oh, nothing can ever look like film. Yeah, but also like, does it matter sometimes? Like, this movie still felt like a fucking old 1930s black and white film, even though it was shot digitally. Like, I still got the same feeling. And if what we're like considering is how I feel in relationship to this moving motion picture.
Right.
What if I feel the same? What does it matter? And then you also get better performances. And yeah, I don't know. I'm totally pro Fincher. I love David Fincher's way.
Yeah, it all really depends on the directorial style. I mean, let's pretend that Christopher Nolan directed this film, and instead of David Fincher, it would have been shot on film. And how would it be different if Christopher Nolan directed this instead of David Fincher? There would be a very large difference. There'd be an entirely different cast. There'd be a lot of different edits. The music would be very loud. Yeah, be a very different film.
Bat signal in the sky. No, I'm just kidding. I love it.
And I'm sure there'd be an exponentially different difference in cost because film is very much more expensive, but I mean time is also costly, so it's just there is price difference depending on how long it's taking to film and how much film you are using. I mean, it's just got to weigh the options in that regard. How long are you taking to shoot versus how much of a physical medium are you using? How are you storing the medium? I guess these are all options you have to weigh when you are making the film.
And time is very important as well. And it's important not to overwork your actors too. And there's a movie that I own that I love. If you haven't seen it, go see it. That was produced and hosted by Keanu Reeves. It's called Side by Side. It's about the evolution slash transition of filmmaking with from using film celluloid film and having that side by side with like the new technology of digital cinema. And there's David Fincher is interviewed in it, along with many other very acclaimed filmmakers. Like Scorsese's in it, George Lucas is in it. The list goes on and on with like Robert Rodriguez. Just hugely famous filmmakers. Anyway, so Fincher's in it, and he mentioned. I don't know what movie it was, Zodiac or something, I'm not sure, but he filmed something with Robert Downey Jr. and I guess, and he told this like as if it was like a funny story, like he was filming so much Robert Downey Jr. to the point where Robert Downey Jr. Decided to protest that because he didn't have a chance to go back to his trailer to get his
it Zodiac?
I think it's Zodiac. Yeah. Cause like as an actor too, I've also done a lot of acting as well. Like sometimes you need a moment to like really get in the moment, like as your character, like you need time to like get your emotions together, get your mindset in this place, especially if it's like a heavy dramatic scene or something, or a very emotional scene. Like you do need a moment as an actor sometimes. And that's not asking too much, I believe. And I guess Robert Downey Jr. is like, I don't have time to go to my trailer. So he ended up peeing in a bunch of mason jars and leaving them out for Fincher to see. And that was like his form of protest was mason jars filled with urine. Anyway, whether
funny.
that story is true or not, he says something to that effect on the movie Side by Side. It was very interesting. Anyway, kind of goes into relation to what we're talking about.
Well, one of the things I will say that goes back to classic filmmaking too with the movie Mank was that some of the scenes in this movie in relation to classic filmmaking, some of the scenes contain what were known as cue marks on the frame, which basically looked like a cigarette burn on the frame.
I love those,
which were very cool.
Cigarette burns, as they're called in Fight Club.
Yes, it looks like a cigarette burn. It's at the top right of the frame, and in classic times, they were used to indicate to a projectionist in a theater at which point when to switch the reels to the next film reel.
Switch the reels.
Obviously, you don't need to switch reels anymore unless you're going to the Music Box in Chicago to see movies that are actually still shown on film.
I used to be a film projectionist in my hometown. Although we had one giant reel, like two platters, like, you had a giant like platter that fed the projector and then like one that would wind it back up again. So I didn't have to switch the reels, but I love thinking about, what the
classic times.
Yeah. Cause if you don't get it right, you could like mess up the movie. Like as a projection, it's like, oh shit, gotta change the reel like immediately. And yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I almost forgot about that. I love that aspect that Fincher and the filmmakers added to this movie.
I thought that was really cool. As I saw that in the movie, I was just thinking to myself, like, they have a cue mark in this? Like, why is there that little burn there?
So Mank was released, as we said, on limited theatrical release in the United States on November 13th, 2020, before beginning to stream worldwide on Netflix on December 4th, 2020. IndieWire reported the film played in 75 theaters during its opening weekend and did similar business as other new indie releases, The Climb and Ammonite, which each averaged about $300 per venue. Wow. Which would mean a $22,500 debut for Mank. Upon the film's release onto Netflix, it only managed to finish in the top 10 on its first day. IndieWire wrote that it just didn't gain the attention of other high-profile originals like Defy Bloods, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and Hillbilly Elegy, all of which debuted in their first or second place. And also on Rotten Tomatoes, it didn't do too bad. It got a 83% out of 297 critics. And they gave the film a positive review with an average of 7.6 out of 10. So yeah, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes.
But see, on Rotten Tomatoes as well, the audience currently has it at a 61%, which I would say for listeners out there, this movie, I will say, if you know nothing about film history, or if you don't know a whole lot about, I mean, you can watch this movie and not know a whole lot about Citizen Kane. That's okay. If you don't know a whole lot about the history of film, if you don't know who Orson Welles is, and you're watching this film is a biographical drama. So this isn't a fictional film necessarily. This isn't, some fantastical, I'm just trying to say this isn't, the dream piece that you might think. Yeah, this isn't Mandalorian. This isn't Star Wars, some epic you're going into like, woohoo, hop on the magic bus. I mean, this is a biographical drama. You're going to go into this. It's a history lesson. So I can understand why there's some people out there who might step into this thinking, oh, wow, a David Fincher film? It's going to be some action thriller.
It's not The Social Network. Yeah,
no.
It's also not The Social Network. Even
no,
though
it's
that
not.
was like a history piece in a way,
Yeah, this isn't, the thrilling chase that, The Social Network might be, or The Game, or Zodiac, or I should say pretty much any other David Fincher film might be. Like I said, this is a biographical drama film, and
no mason jars filled with urine.
Exactly. You're learning something from this movie, and I gotta say I appreciate it for that, and it's not bad for that reason. It's just a different film.
Yeah. Yep. Writing for the Los Angeles Times, Justin Chang said, Mank demands your surrender, but also your heightened attention. It's a pleasurably discombobulating experience, sometimes playing like mordant drawing room comedy and sometimes flirting with expressionist nightmare, as when Wells's dark silhouette looms over a bedridden Mank and his mummified leg. Owen Gleiberman of Variety praised the performances and production design, saying, Mank is a tale of old Hollywood that's more steeped in old Hollywood, its glamour and sleaze, its layer cake hierarchies, its corruption and glory, than just about any movie you've seen. And the effort is to lend it a dizzying time machine splendor. I think that's well said. I think I definitely lean with both those critics.
Sure.
Yeah. And also, Peter Travers, reviewing the film for ABC News, wrote, Mank is the most gorgeous piece of cinema you'll see anywhere. Brilliantly shot in black and white by Eric Messerschmidt, and costumes to die for by Trish Somerville, and a period authentic score by, as similar to last week, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and somehow isn't defeated by the retro mono sound. Mank is meant to match the look and feel of its era, and if it's 8 decades ago and you just bought a ticket. Isn't it funny how like we did a movie last week, Soul, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did music for that and this, and we didn't even plan for it. Like, oh yeah, we just end up picking Mank.
Yeah, and what a very large change in style for Trent Reznor and
Yeah,
Atticus
it's so
Ross.
different too.
Last week in
different.
Soul, it was the ambient soul from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross for the film Soul, and for this, it's the crazy 1940s jazz from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And I literally was saying with the film Soul that I wasn't expecting Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross to do jazz music for Soul, which they didn't do the jazz part. That was John Batiste doing the jazzy stuff in Soul. This movie, that's what they were doing. They were doing the kind of classic 1940s classic film jazzy stuff. I will say I don't think it wasn't necessarily jazzy, but I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to put it in words. Yeah, I guess it could be. It was kind of jazzy.
It was the sounds of old Hollywood. Like,
Yeah.
It made me think exactly what I was already feeling, like it did. The music wasn't jarring. It didn't take away from the film. It didn't add more. It just was like exactly what I was already feeling. It accompanied it with like like all the like heavy drums and like the saxophones. It was just like an appendage. It's like that was, it's supposed to be there. Like you don't even think about it, But if it wasn't there, it would feel like something deeply important was missing if it didn't have that like perfect music to accompany it. It was great. And yeah, you're right. So different from last week with Soul, and these guys are awesome. So very cool that they did both. So, But buddy, we're about that time. So, ladies and gents, if you are new to us, it's now time for our slurps up, slurps down section. That's right. That's where we give the film a verdict. Slurps up means we like it and we recommend it, and slurps down means we don't like it and we don't recommend it, and we have some midway thoughts that we talk about, and also we just kind of say what our final thoughts are about the movie. So, Mr. Annemeisner, what are your final thoughts, your final verdict for your slurps up, slurps down section?
What?
Woo!
I gotta say, I've always been a big fan of David Fincher's work, and with this film, I was pleasantly surprised that this wasn't just an action-filled, thrilling film. However, with that being said, this film is absolutely thrilling to the extent that it's just an American history piece in the film industry of Herman Mankiewicz, and I was absolutely thrilled 100% from start to finish with what this film entailed. I learned a lot about Herman Mankiewicz. I was really happy to see that he was not some faulty character. This is a very real film with a human being who he has his flaws, but he also has the good sides to him that he wanted to help other people with. And I was really happy to see that portrayed in this film. I was also very happy to hear the soundtrack to this that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross put into it. I like the style of the film. This film, like I was saying earlier, looks like it came straight out of the 1940s. Very well done with that. And the acting, Gary Oldman, a lot of people, I will say this, I think a lot of people think that Tom Hanks is the ace of spades when it comes to actors. And I'm going to be honest, I think that Gary Oldman is the fighting card there. And I'm not going to lie. I think that's I'm just saying that. Gary Oldman is fantastic and absolutely in this movie. I think Gary Oldman really delivers. I got to say, slurps up all the way with this movie. Some people, like I was saying, may not enjoy this because it is very much a biographical drama. Some people may find that to be a little slow for their taste. I think it's totally worth the watch. There's parts that are funny. There's parts that are very dramatic. It brings it all the way, but I think it's worth learning something from watching this movie. If anything, watch it to learn about this guy who is very important in film history. So, slurps up.
Woo! Yeah, well said, Mr. Meisner. Yeah, this film does everything you said. I really don't have anything different to say other than I really enjoyed it. It's an important movie to see. It's entertaining in a different way. At times, like one of the reviewers said that I read off, there is times where it does feel like it's a little funny and also very intriguing, especially when it comes to the political atmosphere that was going on back then, and also the highs and lows of this man, and whether it's dealing with this vice or trying to in addition trying to do what's right, and also like getting kicked in the butt by the world, by the people around him, and persevering. And this is a fantastic film. It's a really good film. Go watch it. It's on Netflix, and my final verdict is a high in the sky slurps up.
Slurping.
Slurpage.
I'm always going to think a Goofy movie.
Dude, let's do a Goofy movie sometime.
Just a little bit of smoke, a little bit of slurping, a little bit of slurpage.
Yeah, cheddar whizza. Okay, it's about that time, everyone. We like to close out with a few plugs. That's right, it's solo plug time. This is the part of the show where we please ask you to go check out some stuff that we do besides Screen Slurps. That's right, we're talking to you, United States. We're talking to you, India. We're talking to you, Norway. We're talking to the few people that listen to us in Japan. We appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Russia, are you out there?
But Russia, hello, hi. can you hear us? Please listen to Screen Slurps. Yes, Screen Slurps podcast. But a solo plug from me is that I stream. I stream on Twitch. I play video games and I do other fun things on my channel. So follow me at twitch.tv/-jayhart. That's twitch.tv/DASHJAYHART. I also have another Twitch channel project that's in incubation period, and also, as I mentioned before, that I am in post-production for a short little film that I made this past fall called tentatively called 7 Years. So look out for that. It'll probably be on Vimeo or YouTube or something on the internet. Adam, what would you like to solo plug, my friend?
You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Adam Meisner. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Twitch at A Meisner. And yeah, I make music, and I am open to covering music. If there's something you want to hear, just let me know. Hit me up on social media.
I'm on the Super Mario Brothers theme song, but like jazzy.
With like some horn section and everything.
Yeah, but all a cappella.
Oh, that'd be really cool, actually.
Do it now.
Just layer my voices. And then I just need to re-record myself a cappella all over.
All right. Well, that wraps up for this episode of Screen Slurps, everybody. Thanks for listening, and please be sure to like, follow us on social media. We release new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and just about everywhere you can find podcasts on the internet. And please be sure to follow and subscribe to us on those platforms. And if you like our show, please give us a nice 5-star review in the Apple Podcast app. It will definitely help us reach high on the charts, and please recommend us to everyone in your multiverse.
Yes,
it will help the
please.
show grow to new heights. So closing out, this is Dash Jayhart, aka DJ Gearhart.
And I'm Adam Meisner.
Bestie friend, thank you so much for talking about this movie, Adam. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Slurps up, and we'll catch you later.